This is the Insta360 One RS. It's a modular camera system that allows you to take it apart and choose between a regular wide-angle action lens or swap it to a 360 lens. So today I'll walk you through what it's actually like to use it and give you a thorough review of all of its features. And big thank you to Insta360 for sponsoring this video. And with that said, let's get into it. All right, so let's go over what you get in the box. You get the RS Core, which houses the processor, screen, and memory card. You also get the battery base, 2 lens options, as well as a mounting bracket, which waterproofs the camera, as well as helps with heat dissipation, and of course, allows you to mount it using these little guys down here. You also get a little protector for the 360 lens, as well as a USB-A to USB-C cable. To assemble a camera together, you'll need to pick the lens that you want to use, and then just find the RS Core with a screen and pick either between a rear-facing setup, like I have here with the screen on the back, or a front-facing setup, which now you will be able to see yourself if you're vlogging. And then what you want to do is just take the battery base and just connect it to the camera. You hear a click and you're all set. Now, taking a closer look at this lens, you'll see that the cover is unfortunately not replaceable, which is a little bit unfortunate because if you damage the lens in any way, you'll either need to send it in or buy a new one. Up on the top of the camera, you get the power button as well as the record button. On the side is a flappy door where you'll find the micro SD card slot as well as a USB-C port for charging and file transfers. Now, when I plug the camera in to charge, listen to this sound effect. All right, moving on, let's quickly go over the screen as well as some of the settings. So at first glance, this screen is very tiny, and when you stack it next to a GoPro, it's a pretty big difference. But I feel like GoPro screens have always been plagued by a sluggish and unresponsive screen, which if I wanted to change any setting on my GoPro, it always took me so long to do, and I ended up pressing buttons that I didn't really want to and ended up being really frustrated. Versus on the One RS, it just feels like a normal modern touchscreen. And even though the screen is small, the way the menu items are laid out makes it easy to do what you want to do, so the screen is not a huge deal breaker in my opinion, and I'd much rather take a functional screen over a laggy and unresponsive screen. All right, I know you guys are dying to check out some footage, so let's roll some clips here and talk about image quality. So in terms of image quality at 4K 30, it's pretty good. The dynamic range is there and the detail is pretty good as well. However, it does feel a little bit compressed, which results in some blotchiness and overall isn't as clean as I would like it to be. This isn't really something that you can tell if you're viewing it on a smaller screen like a phone, for example. Something that Insta360 nails though are the colors, exposure, and white balance. Also at 4K 30, you can toggle active HDR. So here's a clip I shot using that mode, also using the microphone from the One RS. So pay attention to the audio. So while we're here, I also wanted to show you guys the active HDR mode. Ian is also gonna show you how big this selfie stick is.
This is crazy.
It's so big.
Don't get too excited.
It shrinks when it's cold. So for audio, I'd say it's passable. For HDR, it does a pretty good job blending shadows and highlights together. And in this side-by-side comparison, if you look at the sky, you can see how it's able to bring those highlights back. As far as slow motion goes, you have 4K 60, which does have a tiny crop. This mode is definitely usable and looks great in my opinion. I love the 2.7K 100 FPS footage. In my opinion, this is the perfect frame rate. Then there's also 200 FPS at 1080p, and while it isn't the best quality, it's there if you need. Then taking a look at the 360 footage, I think this stuff looks fantastic. In fact, if you haven't filmed with 360 before, it's definitely worth trying because it's one thing to be watching me show you all this like really cool footage, but another thing to go out and get a 360 camera for yourself, go do something cool with it, and then sit down and watch that footage back and just see how cool it makes you look. It really is a cool perspective, and Insta360 does a great job with the invisible selfie stick feature. And I can't even express how easy it is to film with a 360 camera versus a regular camera. I was able to give it to my friend Elaine, and she was able to just get some really cool footage on her first time using it. You don't need to worry about what angle to aim the camera at or if the footage is too shaky because the camera literally sees everything and automatically stabilizes it in post with the gyroscopic data. Now I also want to touch on a couple of other topics that Insta360 nails in the One RS, like battery life, reliability, and post-processing. In terms of battery life, I was able to get a full day of recording from a full charge with just a 10-minute top off from a battery bank. And in that 10 minutes of charging, which was just a short water and snack break, I was able to go from 20 to 40%, so I definitely recommend bringing a battery bank with you if you're shooting for a long period of time. But just with the battery it comes with, I'd say it's good enough to last an entire day of medium to light usage. For reliability, I think a lot of people don't talk about this, but it is an important factor, especially when it's an action camera, because you don't want to miss a moment due to the camera freezing or corrupt files, which I've experienced in other action cameras. And I'm happy to say that the One RS doesn't have any of these issues. Every single file saved and the camera performed as expected, which is great to see. Lastly, let's talk about post-processing. So editing with the regular action camera file is pretty straightforward. In fact, the One RS even records a proxy file for you automatically. Then for the 360 footage, again, Insta360 definitely does an amazing job here. I was able to connect the camera with Wi-Fi to my phone, view my clips, track my subject, and export out a clip to use on social media within a couple of minutes. Of course, the same thing can be done on a computer with Insta360 Studio, and it's just a great overall experience. Now, what are some drawbacks with this camera? Well, first off, there are a lot of modes on this camera that are really unnecessary. Modes like 6K widescreen mode, I mean, really, who's gonna be shooting a feature film on this camera? Insta360 does offer quick access modes if you tap on the Q button in the top right, which does help with that issue, so there's that. And then there's also this weird magnifying glass button down here, which is essentially a digital zoom feature. Unless I'm trying to intentionally kill my image quality, I'm not gonna be using this feature. So let's sum it up, shall we? What do I think about this camera as an overall package? And who is it for? And I think the most important question to ask yourself is whether you want a 360 camera or not. Because if you're looking for the ultimate 2-in-1 modular camera setup, there's no other camera on the market that can do it as well as the Insta360 One RS. Personally, I love the versatility and creativity that you can explore with a setup like this. The 360 look really makes you look like a professional in whatever you're doing and just makes you look really cool. So if you've never tried it, it really is becoming easier to get into with the software getting better and better. Now the Twin Edition, or the package that comes with 2 lenses, does come in at $550, which can be pretty steep for some people. But you have to think about the fact that you're getting 2 cameras in one. And if you were to get, let's say, a GoPro Hero 10 as well as a GoPro Max, you'd be looking at well over $1,000. So $550 does sound like a pretty reasonable price point when you consider those factors. However, if you aren't really interested in exploring 360 and just want to get a normal action camera, you can opt for the $300 package with just the 4K boost lens. Now, I think this popular quote sums it up pretty well. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. All right, that is the end of the video. Again, thank you to Insta360 for sponsoring it. And if you're interested in picking up the One RS for yourself, you can use the link below to support the channel. It really helps out a lot. If this video was entertaining or helpful, make sure to go down there and hit that like button. Also, if you enjoy tech videos, consider subscribing to the channel below and checking out my Instagram at Joshua Chang if you want to connect with me there or see any behind the scenes footage. Lastly, I have to give a huge shout out to my friends Ian and Elaine for helping me out in this video. Ian actually pretty much filmed all of the clips that you're watching because he's just a way better snowboarder than me, and you might actually recognize them from the iPhone 13 promotion video. And also check out Ian's photography website if you're in the Bay Area and are looking for headshots, portraits, or family sessions. I'll have links below. All right, that about does it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.